Good day, this is Janelle and Cruz from BIT 4A FSM, and today we will be discussing the Philippine National Building Code. For an introduction, the Philippines National Building Code, or the RA 6541, is an act to ordain the Institute of National Building Code of the Philippines. It does not conform with the development goals and infrastructure program of the government, and it does not adequately provide for all the technological requirements of the building structures in terms of up-to-date design and construction standards and criteria. In the formulation of a new national building code, it is the desire and policy of the government to avail of and harness the technical expertise, professional know-how of men in public and private sectors. General provisions. So let's just define what is general provision. So this is the instructions pertaining to contracts in general. So general provisions in the Philippine National Building Code is on the building requirement, and the site requirements are as follow. So the general provisions in general building requirements, the first one, all the buildings or structures as well as accessories facilities thereto shall conform in all respect to the principles of a safe construction and must be suited to the purpose for which they are designed. Second, buildings or structures intended to be used for the manufacture and or production of any kind of article or product shall observe adequate environmental safeguards. Third is buildings or structures and all parts thereof, as well as facilities found therein shall be maintained in safe, sanitary, and good working conditions. So in site requirements, the first one is the land or site upon which be constructed and building or structure or any ancillary or auxiliary facility thereto shall be sanitary, hygienic, or safe. Second, sites or buildings intended for human habitations or abode, the small or the same shall be at a safe distance as determined by competent authorities from streams or body of waters and or sources of air considered to be polluted from volcano or volcanic site and or any other building considered to be a source of fire or explosion. There are also there are 5 types of constructions, which it will help us to what type of construction of the building that we are seeing in the public, and it will also help us to identify the materials to be used in making such infrastructure. This is the type 1. So as shown in the pictures below, it shall be made of pure wood construction. The type 2, it shall be of wood construction with protective fire-resistant materials, and 1 are fire-resistive throughout, except that permanent non-bearing partitions may use fire-retardant treated wood. So the type 3 is it shall be of masonry and wood construction. Structural elements may be any of the materials permitted. Exterior walls shall be of incombustible, fire-resistive construction. So in type 4, this is the example pictures as well. It's stating here that it shall be of a steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction and walls. Ceiling and permanent partitions shall be of incombustible fire-resistive construction as well. And lastly, the type 5, which as shown in the example picture, it shall be 4-hour fire-resistive throughout, and the structural elements shall be of steel, iron, concrete, masonry construction. So let's just now discuss the classification and general requirements of all buildings by use or occupancy. Under that classification, there is a fire-resistive requirements in construction. So, knowing the fire resistance of different types of building construction will help managers determine what type of building is good for their businesses. This helps by lessening the risk of loss to the business and prevent it as well. So, materials used to construct a building have a different fire resistive ratings. So, fire resistive ratings, this is the degree to which a material can withstand fire as determined by generally recognized and accepted testing methods. And it is also important to understand the fire resistive time period rating. So, this is to prevent another loss to the business since it measures the length of time a material can withstand being burned, which may be 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, and etc. These are the fire resistive standards. So all materials of the construction and type of materials and assemblies or combinations thereof shall conform to the fire resistive ratings, which these are the standards. So the first one is floor construction, solid RC slab. Second is solid pre-stressed concrete slab. Third is partitions. Fourth is protection for metal structural members. Fifth is exterior wall. Sixth is column. So all existing openings on all firewalls shall be sealed completely to maintain the fire integrity of adjoining buildings or structures. There are exemptions depending on the usage of the building, especially if it is used for ventilation. These are the substandard buildings that are not following the minimum requirements on the firewalls. So let's just now proceed to the maximum building height. So the maximum height and number of stories of proposed building shall be dependent upon the character of use or occupancy and the type of construction, considering the following factors. So these are the factors: end user population density. Second is light and ventilation. Third is width of row. Streets, particularly of its roadway carriageway component. So row means it's road right of way. Fourth is a building block. Fifth is off-street off-site parking requirements. And in the maximum height and number of stories of proposed building, there is also relation to as follows. So first is local land use plan and zoning regulations. Second is environmental considerations such as geological, hydrological, meteorological, topographical. Third is prevailing traffic conditions. And fourth is the availability and capacity of public utility or service system. In maximum building height, the following information that I'll be discussing is the determination of the building height. So let's just define first what is the building height limit. So generally measured from the established grade line to the topmost portion of the proposed building structure. The building height limit of any proposed building or structure shall only be as followed under the National Building Code rule. So, as I provided on the photos below, this is the example of the building height limits. We now know what is the building height limit. So for sloping grade perpendicular to row or the road rail of way, with a difference in elevation of less than 3 meters, the highest adjoining natural grade or the ground surface of finished grade or the sidewalk surface shall be established grade elevation. So second in determination, For sloping grade perpendicular to row with a difference in elevation of more than 3 meters, the average grade level established grade elevation. And third, and determination that towers, spires, steepless, not for habitation or storage limited as to the height only by structural design, if completely of incombustible materials. That towers, spires, steepless, not for habitation or storage may extend but not exceed 6 meters above the prescribed building height limit if made of combustible materials. So next, in determining the building height limit, so the height of the proposed buildings or structures shall also be governed by the following row-based limitations. So letter A, if only one row services a lot and such as only 6 to 7 meters wide, BHL of 3 stories or 9 meters maximum shall be observed regardless of use or occupancy, lot size, or dimension. Letter B, if only one row services a lot and such as only 4 to 5 meters wide, a building height limit equivalent to 2.5 stories or 7.50 meters maximum shall be observed. Letter C, if only one row services a lot and such as only 3 meters wide or less, a building height limit is equivalent to 2 stories or 6 meters maximum shall be observed as well. Lastly, letter D, taller buildings are allowed for duly approved high-density developments, such as planned unit development or PUD areas. And next, in determination of building height limit is the following factors that shall also be considered in determining the building height. So, letter A, the soil characteristics. Letter B, hydrological conditions. C, meteorological conditions. Letter D, effects of environmental conditions on the buildings or structures, and vice versa. Letter E, effects of traffic conditions on the building or structure, and vice versa. Letter F, availability and capacity of public utility service system. Lastly, letter G, need for applicable building safety and maintenance system. Okay, still under the classification, there is a parking slot, a parking area, and loading or unloading space requirements. So it says here that the size of an average automobile or car parking slot must be computed at 2.50 meters by 5 meters for perpendicular or diagonal parking. However, 2.15 meters by 6 meters is size for parallel parking. Shown on these pictures below, for a standard truck or bus parking or loading slot must be computed at a minimum of 3.60 meters by 12 meters. But for an articulated truck slot, it must be computed at a minimum of 3.60 by 18 meters, which should be sufficient to accommodate 12 meters container van or a bulk carrier and a long or hooded prime mover. And for a jeepney or shuttle parking or loading or unloading slot, it must be computed at a minimum of 3 meters by 9 meters. The parking slot shall be drawn to scale and the total number of which shall be indicated on the plans. There is also a minimum required of a street or off-road common site parking slot, parking area, and loading or unloading space requirements by allowed use or occupancy. For every 1,000 square meters of the gross floor area, or it should provide 1 car slot and also 1 bus slot for every 100 workers. And if the number of workers were exceeded on 200, one off-row or off-street passenger loading space that can accommodate 2 queued jeepney or shuttle slots. And for every 5,000 square meters of a gross floor area, it should provide at least one loading slot for the articulated truck or vehicle, which has a 12-meter long container van plus 6-meter length for a long hooded prime mover. And also for a standard truck, there should also one loading slot. And also provide truck maneuvering area outside of the row or within the property or lot lines only. Still under the classifications, for the traffic generating buildings, so commercial buildings that have very high volumes of pedestrian and vehicular traffic may be located at major intersections or 100 meters of such intersections. So the distance between the street curb of the ingress or egress of such commercial or lot or property nearest the intersection and the straight curb of the intersection shall not be less than 50 meters.